A day after we moved into our new apartment, the previous owner called me. She said, "I forgot to turn off the hidden security camera and I accidentally saw what your husband was doing while you were at the grocery store. Come see me immediately, and whatever you do, do not tell him a word." Hello. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. Enjoy the story. Only 24 hours before that phone call, Maya Sterling was the happiest woman in the city. In the massive living room with 13-foot ceilings, the air smelled of expensive plaster, oak floors, and a faint hint of dust left behind by the movers. The sound of footsteps echoed with that hollow ring found only in old, monumental buildings. The Meridian Commons had stood there since the 1950s, looking like an impenetrable fortress guarding its residents from the chaos of the outside world. Maya stood by the tall window overlooking the inner courtyard, swirling a glass of champagne. The bubbles rose, turning gold in the sunset. She was 41 years old, but at that moment, she felt like a young debutante who had just been invited to the most important ball of her life. Andre came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her shoulders. His hands, strong, confident hands of a contractor used to reshaping space to fit his will, rested heavy and secure. "Well," he said softly, kissing her temple, "we did it. 12 years, Maya. We've been working toward this day for 12 years. Maya closed her eyes and took a sip. The wine tasted sharp. "I still can't believe it," she admitted. "When Elena agreed to sell us this place, I thought it was a mistake. People don't sell apartments like this, Andre. They're passed down as family legacies. Money solves any inheritance issue," Andre chuckled, turning her to face him. "Elena wanted to get out of the city and forget the past. We just helped her do that. Now this is our home, our fortress. No more rented corners, no more sideways glances from neighbors. You own the best boutique in the city. I'm a respected contractor. We earned the right to live at the Meridian." He clinked his glass against hers. The sound was clear and long-lasting. Maya looked at her husband. At 45, he looked even better than he did on their wedding day. The touch of gray at his temples only added to his authority. He was the man who had pulled her out of depression after that terrible tragedy with Lucas, when her brother died, or as the doctors put it, burned out from his lifestyle. It was Andre who handled everything: the funeral, the debts, the sale of her parents' old beach house to cover Lucas's loans. He had been her rock. "To our new life," Maya said, "and may the past stay behind the threshold." They drank it all. In the empty apartment, where the curtains hadn't even been hung yet, it felt like time itself had stopped to give them a clean slate. Andre walked across the room with the air of a man who owned the world, straightening a painting leaning against the wall. "They're bringing the office furniture tomorrow," he noted businesslike. "I'll head to the job site in the morning to check on my crew. You can start unpacking the kitchen boxes." "Of course," Maya nodded. "Just don't be late. I don't want to have our first dinner here alone." Andre flashed that same smile he used to charm clients when signing contracts. "I always come back, Maya. You know that." The morning didn't start with sunlight on her pillow, but with the sharp vibration of her phone on the nightstand. Maya opened her eyes and fumbled for the device. The screen showed the name, Elena Vane. Maya frowned. The deal had closed a week ago. The keys were handed over, the money was wired. What else was there to say to her brother's widow, a woman who had spent the last few years carefully avoiding any contact with her husband's family? Andre was already gone. His side of the bed was cold. Maya sat up, threw on a robe, and answered. "Hello?" "Maya, don't interrupt me and don't ask questions." Elena's voice was dry, like the rustle of dead leaves. There was no panic, no hysteria, just a bone-deep exhaustion. "Are you alone?" "Yes. Andre left for the—" "I don't care where Andre is. Listen carefully. Freedom Park. The bench by the Memorial Plaza, 40 minutes. Come alone. If you say a word to Andre, I'll vanish, and you'll never know what you actually bought." "Elena, what are you talking about? We bought the apartment. The paperwork is with the lawyer." "You bought the walls, Maya. I sold you what was inside. I'm waiting." The line went dead. Maya set the phone down. The chill of the morning floor seeped into her bones. She dressed mechanically, grabbing her bag and rushing out without even a cup of coffee. The park was empty. The memorial flame flickered in the wind. The faint smell of gas mixed with the dampness of the autumn air. Elena sat on the far bench, wrapped in a shapeless gray coat. She looked 10 years older than she had at the cemetery. Maya approached, trying to maintain her composure. She owned a high-end boutique. She was used to keeping a straight face for clients, even when her insides were trembling with dread. "Hello, Elena. What's with the mystery? If you forgot some things in the apartment, you could have just said so." Elena looked up at her. There was so much emptiness in her eyes that Maya felt a chill. The woman didn't even say hello. She reached into her deep bag and pulled out a tablet in a worn case. "Sit," she commanded. Maya sat, careful not to let their coats touch. "I didn't forget things, Maya. I forgot to turn off the surveillance system. Andre thought I was a fool who only knew how to spend Lucas's money. But I always knew he didn't trust me, so I put cameras everywhere, even in the pantry." "Why do I need to know this?" Maya felt a spark of irritation. "You and Andre never liked each other, but spying—" "Look." Elena tapped the screen. The video was black and white, a bit grainy, but the quality was good enough to recognize the place. It was the pantry in their new apartment. The door was currently blocked by boxes. Andre had told her it was just construction debris he'd haul away in a few days. In the top right corner, the timestamp ran. The recording was from this morning, 40 minutes ago, exactly when Andre was supposed to be at his job site. On the screen, the door opened. Andre walked into the narrow, windowless room. He was wearing the same shirt Maya had seen him in that morning. In his hands, he held a plastic tray with food, a bowl of oatmeal, a piece of bread, and a glass of water. Maya's brow furrowed. "What is he doing? It's just trash in there." "Watch," Elena repeated harshly. Andre walked deeper into the narrow room toward a wall that looked solid. He leaned down and placed the tray on the floor. Then he took a step back and crossed his arms. His posture wasn't one of care. It was the stance of a prison guard. From a dark corner near the wall where the light didn't reach, a pile of rags began to move. Maya squinted. The rags rose. It was a man, thin, overgrown with hair, dressed in filthy clothes. He slowly crawled toward the tray. He moved as if every motion caused him pain, or as if he had long forgotten how to walk upright. He grabbed the bread with a trembling hand and began to eat instantly, choking it down without lifting his head. Andre said something to him. There was no sound, but from the movement of her husband's lips, Maya recognized that expression: disgusted, cold, and dominant. He kicked an empty plastic bottle toward the man with the toe of his boot, turned around, and walked out, locking the door tightly behind him. The man on the screen was left alone. He lifted his head and looked directly into the lens of the hidden camera, as if he could feel her gaze. Maya stopped breathing. The world around her, the park, the city noise, the wind, all vanished. There was only the face on the small screen. The eyes. She would have known those eyes in 100 years, deep set with the same curve their father had, the scar over the left eyebrow from when he fell off his bike as a child. "This can't be," Maya whispered. Her voice failed her, turning into a rasp. "We buried him 12 years ago. It was a closed casket. Andre identified the body." "The paperwork." She looked at Elena, searching for a grain of pity. Some hint that this was a cruel prank or a deep fake, but Elena looked at her with brutal directness. "A closed casket is convenient, Maya, especially when your husband is a master at solving problems and your brother owes too much money." Maya looked back at the screen. The man in the pantry was finishing the oatmeal, glancing around like a cornered animal. It was Lucas, her brother Lucas, whom she had mourned every Sunday at church, alive in her own apartment behind the wall where she had toasted with champagne just yesterday. "The apartment was never mine," Elena said quietly, leaning in close to Maya's face. "I was never the owner. I was the jailer. Andre bought this place 12 years ago through a shell company and put me here for one reason: to feed a ghost. He paid me a salary to keep Lucas dead to the world but alive for him." Elena shoved the tablet into Maya's numb hands and stood up. "Now you're the owner, Maya. Now it's your shift." She turned and walked quickly toward the park exit, leaving Maya alone with a tablet showing her dead brother licking crumbs off a plastic plate in her new pantry. Maya didn't remember the drive home. The road was a blur of traffic lights and car horns, with a single thought thumping in her head like a pulse. He's there. He's there. He's there. She entered the apartment, trying to breathe steadily. The key turned in the lock with a soft click that now sounded like a trigger being pulled. The hallway was silent, too silent for a house hiding a human being. Andre walked out of the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel. He was wearing that same shirt. He smiled calmly, openly, the smile of a husband, happy to see his wife. "You're back fast," he said. "I thought you'd get stuck in traffic. Want some coffee? I just brewed a pot." Maya forced herself to smile back. Her face felt like a plaster mask, ready to crack at the slightest movement. "No thanks." Her voice was surprisingly steady. "My head is spinning a bit. Probably the weather. I'm going to lie down for 30 minutes. "Of course, rest up." Andre stepped closer and touched his palm to her forehead. His fingers were warm, the fingers of a jailer. "You're pale. Maybe an aspirin?" "No, just need to lie down." She walked past him into the bedroom, feeling his eyes on her back. She closed the door and leaned against it, counting to 10. She needed time. She needed him to leave. 15 minutes later, Andre's phone rang. Maya strained her ears. "Yes, Mr. Thorne. Yes, I understand it's urgent. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Yes, I'm leaving now." Footsteps in the hall, the jingle of keys, the heavy thud of the front door, the click of the lock. Maya lunged. She flew into the hallway, ran to the window, and carefully pulled back the curtain. Andre's silver SUV was pulling out of the driveway. She waited another minute until the car disappeared around the corner, and only then did she rush to the pantry. The door was locked, a standard interior door, white with a brass handle, but it wouldn't budge. Maya yanked the handle once, twice. Locked. "Lucas," she whispered, pressing her ear to the wood. "Lucas, can you hear me? It's Maya." Silence. Only the hum of the ventilation deep in the walls. She ran to the kitchen, grabbed a thin paring knife, came back, and tried to jimmy the lock. Useless. The mechanism was simple, but solid. Then she remembered the video. Andre hadn't used a key. In the recording, his hands were empty. When he approached the door, he had done something else. Maya closed her eyes, conjuring the image from the tablet. Andre walked up, leaned down. Where? Not to the handle, lower, toward the floor. She dropped to her knees in front of the door. To the right of the frame was a decorative grate covering the radiator, an old cast-iron radiator painted to match the walls. Maya slid her fingers through the pattern of the grate. Dust, cold metal, paint. Nothing. Think, Maya, think. You saw this. She pulled the grate toward her. It gave with a slight creak but didn't come off. She pushed harder, sliding it to the side, and then she saw it. In the wall, right behind the radiator pipe, was a small, barely visible lever. A common slide bolt recessed into the plaster and painted the same color. If you didn't know it was there, you could live in this apartment your whole life and never notice. Maya pushed the lever. There was a dull click inside the door. The mechanism released. She stood up, wiped her sweaty palms on her jeans, and turned the handle. The door opened. A smell hit her, a stale, heavy odor of unwashed skin, old clothes, and cheap tobacco. It was the same brand Lucas used to smoke in college when he was playing the brooding intellectual. That smell was a time machine, instantly transporting her back 12 years. "Lucas?" Maya stepped into the darkness. Her hand fumbled for a switch. A dim bulb flickered on. The room was narrow and long, like a hallway. No windows. Along one wall were shelves piled with junk, old paint cans, rolls of wallpaper. In the far corner lay a mattress covered with a gray wool blanket. Next to it was the tray of half-eaten oatmeal she'd seen on the video. But Lucas wasn't there. "Lucas!" she called out louder, no longer caring if the neighbors heard. Empty. The blanket was rumpled as if someone had just jumped up from it. There were cigarette butts on the floor, but no person. It was a dead end. 4 walls, 1 door. Where could he have gone? Maya frantically searched the tiny space. She looked behind the shelves, threw aside empty boxes. No one. He couldn't have vanished. Then her eyes caught something on the floor near the mattress. A small rectangle of plastic glinted in the dust. Maya leaned down and picked it up. It was a badge, an ID for St. Jude's Medical Center. She recognized it. She had one just like it in her purse. She'd gotten it a week ago for her checkup. She flipped the plastic over. It read, "Patient Sterling Maya." Her name, her last name, her birth date. But the photo wasn't hers. Staring back from the small black and white square was the face of Elena Vane. Her hair was cropped short, and her gaze was wild and unfocused. Maya felt the floor drop out from under her. She looked down at the blood type line. It said AB negative. Maya was B positive. Elena was O positive. AB negative had been Lucas's blood type. It was a twisted mosaic. Her name, Elena's face, Lucas's blood, and the hospital's official stamp dated yesterday. Why would Andre need a fake ID in her name with her dead brother's data and his widow's photo? Maya squeezed the plastic in her fist until the edges bit into her palm. This wasn't just a prison. This was preparation for something far more terrifying. Lucas wasn't just being kept here. Andre was building a new identity, or using Lucas as some kind of donor. In the silence of the apartment, a strange sound suddenly echoed. A dull, rhythmic thud. Not from the hallway, not from the street. The sound was coming from the wall where the mattress lay. Thump, 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 thump. Maya froze. She knew that rhythm. As children, she and Lucas used to knock on the wall like that when their parents sent them to separate rooms as punishment. 2 shorts, 1 long. "I'm here." He wasn't in the room. He was deeper, in the bowels of this cursed building. Maya pressed her ear to the cold plaster. The knocking repeated, muffled, as if from underground. She yanked the mattress aside. Beneath it was a standard wood floor, but one of the boards was slightly wider than the others and held down by new, shiny nails. Maya pried the edge with her paring knife. The blade bent, but the board gave way. It wasn't a board. It was a hatch cover, disguised as the floor. The smell of dampness, mold, and rot hit her. Below was the blackness of a service crawl space between the floors. "Lucas!" she whispered into the dark. No answer, only a scuffling sound. Someone was crawling there, in a space barely big enough for a cat. Maya didn't hesitate. She dropped the knife, tucked her knees, and slid into the hole. The walls squeezed her from all sides. It was incredibly narrow. Dust filled her nose. Cobwebs stuck to her face. She crawled on her elbows, scraping her skin, following the sound of heavy breathing ahead. These were the service tunnels of the old building. The guts people told legends about. They said you could cross the whole block through them without ever stepping outside. Now she knew it was true. "Stop!" she cried out, choking on dust. "Lucas, stop! It's me!" Something clanked against a pipe ahead. The light from the pantry barely reached here, but Maya could make out a silhouette. A man was curled in a ball in a niche where the hot water pipes met. He was shaking. Maya crawled closer. Now she saw his face. It was him, but at the same time not him at all. 12 years in the dark had turned a handsome intellectual into an old man. His skin was gray, almost translucent, his eyes wild, his hair a matted mess. He saw her and pressed himself into the wall, covering his head with his hands like a child expecting a blow. "Don't!" he whimpered. The voice was raspy, barely human. "I didn't do anything. I stayed quiet. Don't hit me." "Lucas. It's me, Maya." She reached out, but he flinched, kicking at her. "Go away! You're one of them. You sent him. You said I wasn't needed anymore." Maya froze. The pain from the kick to her shoulder paled in comparison to his words. "What are you talking about? I thought you were dead. We buried you." Lucas suddenly went still. He lowered his hands and looked at her. In his eyes was a mixture of animal terror and disbelief. "Buried me?" he asked. "Yeah. You guys put on a good show. Beautiful. Andre showed me the photos. You in the black veil, crying, very convincing. He said it was your idea. Sister's tired of your debts, Lucas. Sister wants a quiet life. She needs the business, not a junkie brother." Maya felt nausea rising in her throat. "Andre told me you died of an overdose. I paid all your debts, Lucas. We sold the beach house to clear those loans with Apex Credit Solutions." At the mention of Apex, Lucas gave a hysterical giggle. The sound echoed through the tunnel, bouncing off the rusty pipes. "Apex Credit Solutions. Maya, you're so smart. You own a boutique. You sew suits for executives. And you never checked? Not once?" He crawled closer. His breath smelled of decay. "There is no Apex. It was a shell company. The founder was some homeless guy, but the actual owner..." He pointed a filthy finger at the ceiling, toward their apartment. "Your husband. He lent me the money himself through straw men. He pumped me full of loans knowing I couldn't pay. He dug this hole, Maya, to take everything. The beach house, Dad's business, your share of the inheritance, and me." Maya sat in the dirt, cold sweat running down her back. The puzzle was coming together. A horrific, bloody puzzle. Andre wasn't a savior. He was a spider who had been weaving this web for years. "But why keep you here?" she whispered. "If he took everything, why keep you alive?" Lucas looked at her with a sudden, chilling clarity. The madness receded for a moment, replaced by icy despair. "Because I'm not just a debtor. I'm a witness, and an actor in his main film. He faked my death, Maya, but he didn't just stage it. He filmed it." Lucas pulled a small flash drive from his rags, hanging on a dirty string. 12 years ago in that basement. He brought people. They beat me. Then one of them injected me with something that stopped my breathing. I could hear everything, but I couldn't move. They put me in a bag. Andre filmed the whole thing. Filmed my dead face. Filmed the doctor pronouncing me. And then he showed me that video. Lucas shook, tears carving tracks through the grime on his face. He said, "See, Lucas? You're dead. Officially. If you ever show your face, if you ever try to contact your sister, I'll send this video to the police, not as proof of my guilt, but as proof that you faked your death to run from creditors and the IRS. Fraud, tax evasion. You'll get 10 years, and in prison I'll make sure you never walk out." Maya looked at her brother and realized Andre had created the perfect trap. A dead man can't go to the police. A dead man has no rights. He exists only as long as he's useful to his jailer. "He's blackmailing you with your own death," she whispered. "Not just me." Lucas looked her in the eye. "He said if I escaped, he'd lock you up too as an accomplice. You were the one who identified the body. Your signature is on the police report. You confirmed the lie, Maya. You're part of the crime." At that moment, the front door of the apartment slammed shut above them. Heavy, confident footsteps thudded across the hardwood right over their heads. Andre was back, early. "Quiet," Lucas mouthed, pressing back into the pipe niche. "He hears. He always hears." "Maya, honey? I picked up those eclairs you love. Where are you? You're not in the bedroom." His voice was calm and affectionate, the kind of voice that made Maya's blood turn to ice. He was walking toward the pantry. Maya froze, terrified to even breathe. The dust in her throat made her want to cough, but she bit her lip until it bled. The floorboards creaked right above the hatch. Andre was standing directly over them. "Maya?" His voice was muffled but clear. No alarm yet, just mild confusion. "Strange. The door's open, but no one's here." He took a step, then another. The sound of his footsteps faded as he left the pantry. Maya looked at Lucas. He was hugging his knees, shivering. His eyes pleaded with her. "Go." She nodded, silently promising to return, and crawled back toward the light. Getting out was harder than getting in. Her muscles cramped and her hands slipped. She hauled herself up into the pantry and immediately closed the hatch, pinning it with the board. The mattress went back. The boxes were moved back to their original positions. She barely had time to brush the dust off her knees and slip into the hallway before Andre appeared from the kitchen. He was holding a box of pastries. "Ah, there you are." He smiled, but his eyes remained cold, scanning her. "I thought you were playing hide and seek. Where were you? I called for you." Maya leaned against the wall, her legs trembling. Her heart was beating so hard she thought it would burst through her ribs. I was in the bathroom. The water was running. I didn't hear you." Andre stepped closer. He looked at her face, then shifted his gaze to her hands. Dirty, dusty, scraped hands. Then to her jeans, stained with white plaster on the knees. His smile changed. It became soft and sympathetic, that tender smile that made her want to scream. "Maya, sweetie." He set the box on the side table and took her wrist, lifting her dirty palms to the light. "Look at you. You're shaking, and this mess. You were looking for the old photos again, weren't you?" "What?" Maya was caught off guard. "No, I dropped my ring behind the dresser. I had to crawl for it." "Shh." He pressed a finger to her lips. "Don't make excuses. I understand. Moving is a huge stress, and this neighborhood, the memories, it probably feels like the past is coming back, doesn't it?" He spoke in a quiet, hypnotic tone, like a psychiatrist with a volatile patient. "I've noticed you haven't been yourself lately, forgetting things, mixing up dates. Like right now, you're talking about your ring, but you're wearing it." Maya looked at her hand. Her wedding ring was indeed on her finger. She had told the first lie that came to mind, and he had caught her. "Andre, I'm not crazy," she snapped, pulling her hand away. "I'm just tired." "Of course you're tired. You're overworked, maybe even a little paranoid from the stress. You need to lie down. I'll call a doctor to give you a sedative." "I don't need a doctor," she shouted, backing away. "I just need to be alone." At that moment, there was a sharp knock at the back door, the one leading to the service stairs. 3 quick raps. Andre frowned. The mask of the caring husband cracked for a second, revealing irritation. "Who is that now?" he muttered. "I'm not expecting anyone. Go to the bedroom, Maya. I'll handle it." But Maya didn't move. She recognized that knock. Only one woman knocked like that. "No, I'll get it," she said, and beating her husband to it, she threw the latch. Elena stood on the threshold. She looked even worse than she had in the park. Her face was gray, her lips bitten raw. In her hands, she clutched a thick accordion folder. "Elena." Andre froze in the doorway of the living room. His voice turned icy. "What are you doing here? We had a deal. The sale is final. You got your money, and you were supposed to disappear." "The money's gone, Andre," Elena said raspy, pushing her way into the hall. She didn't even look at Maya. Her eyes were locked on him. "Your little handout for a ticket to Thailand? It's a joke. I need more, a lot more." "Are you drunk?" Andre stepped toward her, clearly intending to throw her out. "Get out before I call security." "Call them!" Elena shrieked. "Call the police, security, whoever you want. Let everyone know you have a dead man living in your basement." Andre stopped. He shot a quick glance at Maya. His eyes flickered with calculation. "Maya, go to the other room," he ordered harshly. "Elena's having a breakdown. She just wants money for a fix. Don't listen to this nonsense." "Nonsense?" Elena laughed a terrifying, barking laugh. "Maya already knows, Andre. She saw the video. I showed her." Silence fell. A thick, heavy silence, where the only sound was the ticking of the grandfather clock in the living room. Andre slowly turned his head toward his wife. There was no care or warmth left in his eyes, only a cold, predatory void. "You saw it?" he asked quietly. Maya backed against the wall, feeling cornered. "Yes," she breathed. "I saw Lucas. I know what you did. You're a monster, Andre." Andre chuckled. He relaxed, shoving his hands into his pockets as if the situation had ceased to be dangerous and had simply become tedious. "Monster. Such a dramatic word. I'm a businessman, Maya. I solve problems. Your brother was a problem, a massive, expensive problem. I solved it for us, for our family. You kept him in a cage for 12 years. I kept him safe, Andre barked, and it was the first time he had raised his voice. If he had stepped out on the street, the real creditors would have killed him, or he'd have died in a gutter from an overdose. I gave him a roof, food, and a life. Yeah, a rat's life, but it's a life. You stole everything from him. Maya felt her anger pushing out her fear. You framed him. Me, Andre laughed. And who signed the papers? Who transferred the money? He gestured to Elena. Show her. Let our Saint Maya see how clean her hands are. With trembling hands, Elena opened the folder and pulled out a sheet of paper. It was a bank statement with an official seal. This is the statement for the account used to maintain the asset, Elena said quietly, handing it to Maya. The account is in the name of the cleaner who supposedly handled Lucas. In reality, it's Andre's offshore account. Maya took the paper. The letters danced before her eyes, but she forced herself to focus. Sender: Sterling, Maya A. Payment purpose: charitable donation. Amount: $700. Frequency: monthly. Starting October, 12 years ago. What is this? Maya whispered. I didn't send this money. You did, Andre said softly. Remember that animal rescue foundation I suggested years ago? Second Life. You signed the auto pay. You thought you were saving puppies, but you were paying for your brother's imprisonment. The food, the electricity, Elena's silence. Maya stared at the paper as her world collapsed. You made me an accomplice, she said, her voice unrecognizable. You made me pay for my own brother's prison. Legally? Yes, Andre nodded. To any investigator, it looks like this. A sister wanting to get rid of her junkie brother hires a man, fakes his death, and then pays for 10 years to keep him in a secret room. The motive is there. The inheritance. The means are there. And the evidence? It's right there with your electronic signature. He walked right up to her and leaned into her ear. We're in the same boat, Maya. If I go down, you go down with me as the one who ordered it. And the one who pays gets more time than the one who pulls the trigger. Elena stood by the door, clutching her empty folder. I need money, Andre, she repeated dully. Or I go to the police. I have nothing left to lose. Andre looked at her with contempt. Fine, you'll get your money, but first, Maya and I need to discuss something. In private. He placed a hand on Maya's shoulder, a heavy, possessive hand. We have a choice, Maya. Either we go to the police right now and we both go to prison, or we sit down, have some tea, and decide how to live with our little family secret. Maya looked at the bank statement in her hand, her signature, her money, her prison. She slowly looked up. Something inside her clicked, like a gear shifting. The fear that had paralyzed her vanished, replaced by an icy crystal clarity. Andre thought he had cornered her. He thought she would break under the weight of guilt, even manufactured guilt. He didn't know one thing. Maya Sterling had run a boutique for 20 years, dealing with the most demanding people in the city. She knew how to smile while holding a knife behind her back. Fine, she said, her voice surprisingly calm. You're right, Andre. We don't need the police. We don't need a scandal. I value my reputation too much to let this get out. Andre blinked. He had expected hysterics, tears, or denial, not agreement. You understand? He loosened his grip on her shoulder. I understand. We're tied together. Maya neatly folded the statement and set it on the table. Elena, wait in the kitchen. My husband and I need to talk. Elena, looking confusedly from one to the other, shuffled into the kitchen. Maya walked into the living room and sat in an armchair. She gestured to the sofa across from her. Sit. We need to agree on terms. Andre sat, still wary. What terms? We just keep living, Maya. I'll take care of Lucas like I have all these years. Elena gets her money and leaves. Everything stays the same. No, Maya shook her head. It can't stay the same. I can't live in this apartment knowing my brother is behind the wall, but I also know that letting him out now means prison for both of us." She paused, giving him time to take the bait. "I want guarantees, Andre. You're too smart, too cunning. Today we're partners in crime, but tomorrow you might decide I'm a liability. I need insurance." "What insurance?" "This apartment and the cottage. You'll transfer the titles to me completely, right now." Andre laughed. "Are you joking? That's millions of dollars, Maya." "And what is your freedom worth?" She leaned forward. "Or do you think I won't risk the police? I can play the victim, Andre. The poor woman tricked by her husband into financing a kidnapping, but you, as the mastermind, you won't wiggle out of that." Andre stopped laughing. Maya saw the gears turning in his head. He was weighing the risks. "Fine," he finally said. "If that's the price of your peace of mind, take it. But we do it quietly, without your lawyers. I have a notary who works weekends and doesn't ask questions. Deal?" "Deal," Maya nodded. She subtly touched the pocket of her jeans. Her phone was there, with the voice recorder running. She'd turned it on in the hallway when she heard Elena's voice. "But before we go," she said softly, "tell me the truth. For me. Why did you do it? Not for the money. I know you. There was something personal." Andre rubbed his face tiredly. The tension of the last few hours had finally caught up to him. He relaxed, believing the crisis had passed and his wife was back on his side. "Because he was always the favorite," he said hollowly. "Lucas the genius, Lucas the talent, Lucas the family's hope. And who was I? Maya's husband, the guy who fixes roofs. I wanted to show your father I could run his empire better than his golden boy. I wanted Lucas to depend on me, to be nothing without me. And I succeeded." "You created a hell just to feel like a god," Maya summarized. "I created order," Andre snapped. "Enough talk. Get ready. We're going to the notary." An hour later, they were in a small office in a basement downtown. The notary public sign looked official enough. Inside, it smelled of coffee and paper. Behind a massive desk sat a man in an expensive suit and gold-rimmed glasses. He introduced himself as Victor. Maya felt her hands shaking but kept them steady. The recorder in her pocket was her main weapon, but right now she needed the paper, the document that would make her the master of the situation. Victor handed her a stack of papers. "Property quitclaim deed," he explained in a bored, official tone. "Apartment 12 at the Meridian and the cottage at Pine Lake. Transfer of ownership to Maya A. Sterling. Review and sign." Maya scanned the text. The legal jargon was dense, but the essence was clear. Andre was voluntarily giving her everything. She looked at her husband. He sat beside her, calm, almost indifferent. He signed his copy without looking. "Your turn," he said. Maya took the pen. At that moment, she felt an incredible sense of relief. It was a victory, messy and dirty, but a victory. With this document, she could kick Andre out. She could hire the best lawyers for Lucas. She could fix everything. She signed her name in a large script at the bottom of the page, then signed the transfer act and the notary's ledger. "Congratulations," Victor said, stamping the paper with a loud thud. "The deal is finalized." Maya exhaled. She hugged the folder of documents to her chest like a shield. "Can we go home now?" "Of course," Andre smiled. "Home." They walked out into the street. The autumn air felt sweeter than ever to Maya. She had done it. She had outplayed him. Andre opened the car door for her. "You know," he said as they pulled away, "I'm almost glad it happened this way. No more secrets between us. We're true partners now." Maya didn't answer. She looked out the window, clutching the folder. She didn't notice Andre typing a message on his phone and sending it. She didn't see Victor, back in the office, take off his glasses, unbutton his collar, and pull a bottle of bourbon from his desk. The door to the back room of the office opened, and a young man in jeans walked out. "So, Uncle Vic, did she buy it?" Hook, line, and sinker, chuckled the notary, who was actually Andre's cousin, a failed actor named Vic. She signed without looking, didn't even notice the second page in the stack was different. He picked up the document Maya had just signed. It wasn't a deed. The heading read, Sworn Confession. The text began, I, Maya A. Sterling, being of sound mind, do hereby confess that for 12 years I have illegally held my brother, Lucas Vane, in an isolated room for the purpose of hiding him from creditors and seizing family assets. And beneath the confession lay another sheet, a general power of attorney over all her assets, granted to Andre Sterling. Vic poured the bourbon into a plastic cup. Brilliant. Andre's a damn genius. Meanwhile, Maya sat in the car, clutching the folder that wasn't a shield, but a prison sentence. She was thinking about how she'd get home, open the pantry, and tell Lucas he was free. She didn't know the trap had just snapped shut. Andre's SUV slowed to a stop at the entrance of the Meridian Commons. Maya didn't wait for him to open the door. She jumped onto the sidewalk, clutching the folder. I'm going to Lucas right now, she tossed over her shoulder. You have 1 hour to pack your things. Andre didn't respond. He just smiled strangely and pressed a button on his key fob, locking the car doors. Maya ran up the steps, threw open the heavy oak door of the lobby, and ran straight into the broad chest of a security guard. It wasn't the usual guard, Mr. Miller. It was a stranger, a mountain of a man in a black uniform with no patches. Beside him stood a second guard, just as stone-faced. Excuse me, I live here. Maya tried to move past them, but one guard stepped in her way. Unauthorized entry is prohibited, he rumbled in a flat voice. Unauthorized? Maya gasped. I own apartment 12. Here are the documents. She frantically opened the folder to pull out the deed. Ma'am, don't make a scene. The second guard put a heavy hand on her shoulder, turning her toward the exit. We have orders from the owner. No unauthorized persons, especially unstable ones. What owner? I am the owner, Andre. She turned, looking for her husband, who was just coming up the steps. Andre, tell them. What is this circus? Andre stopped on the top step. His face was a picture of deep, sincere sorrow. He looked at Maya with such pity that her blood ran cold. Maya, honey, he said softly. Please, don't make a scene. You need to calm down. The doctors will be here soon. What doctors? What are you talking about? Maya backed away. We were just at the notary. You signed the deed. Neighbors began to gather in the courtyard. Meridian residents, curious elderly ladies, moms with strollers. The acoustics of the courtyard carried every word. Andre sighed and turned to the neighbors. Please forgive us, he said loudly, his voice thick with emotion. My wife, she's having a breakdown. The move, the stress, she's starting to hear voices. She thinks her late brother is alive, that he's here in the building. A whisper rippled through the crowd. Poor Maya. She was always a little off after the funeral. Grief does things to a person. That's a lie, Maya screamed, panic beginning to choke her. He's lying. Lucas is alive. He's holding him in the apartment. I saw him. I have the papers. She yanked the papers from the folder and shoved them under the nearest guard's nose. Look! The deed! The guard glanced at the paper and smirked. A deed? Can you read, lady? Maya looked down at the page. The letters jumped, but she saw the header clearly. Sworn confession. The world tilted. She flipped the page. General power of attorney. Property Transfer Act. Everything was signed in her hand, every single page. No, she whispered. No, this was switched. It was a different document. Victor notarized it. Victor notarized what you signed, Andre said sadly, taking the folder from her hands. He did it easily, like taking a dangerous toy from a child. Maya, you confessed to hiding some drifter in there and pretending he was Lucas. You've lost your mind to grief, dear. You brought a homeless man into our home and fed him, calling him your brother's name. He turned to the guards. Guys, remove that man from the apartment. Let the police figure out who he is. And my wife, Don't let her back in. She's a danger to herself." The lobby door opened, and 2 other guards dragged Lucas out by his arms. He looked terrible, filthy, overgrown, squinting at the bright daylight he hadn't seen in 12 years. He moaned and tried to break free, but he was too weak. "Lucas!" Maya screamed, lunging for him. A guard caught her around the waist. "It's him! It's my brother! Look at him! You people, you remember Lucas?" The crowd of neighbors recoiled. They didn't see the brilliant grad student they knew years ago. They saw a delirious, broken man in rags who was drooling and rolling his eyes in terror. "My God, how awful," whispered a woman from the second floor. "Maya's really gone, bringing a transient home and calling him Lucas." "It is Lucas!" Maya shrieked, squirming in the guard's grip. "Andre, what are you doing?" Andre walked up to Lucas. He didn't look at him like a brother-in-law, but like a nuisance finally being cleared away. "Take him," he said shortly. "Drop him at the county psych ward as a John Doe. He doesn't have ID." "He does," Maya suddenly remembered. "He has my hospital badge with Elena's photo." But Andre wasn't listening. He turned to Maya. "And you, dear, you're left with nothing. The apartment is mine now via the deed you signed in your delirium. The cottage is mine. The business is mine by power of attorney. You're a danger to society, Maya. You need help." "You wouldn't dare," she rasped. "I'll go to the police. I have the recording." She reached into her pocket for her phone. Empty. Her pocket was empty. Maya went cold. She remembered Andre hugging her outside the notary's office, adjusting her coat. The caring husband. Andre pulled her phone from his own pocket. He twirled it in his fingers, showing her the screen. "Looking for this?" He pressed a button, and Maya heard the sound of a file being deleted. "Poor Maya, losing your things, losing your mind. Get out of here," he said quietly, leaning in. "Before I actually commit you to the state asylum. Go, live on the street like your brother did. See how it feels." The guard shoved her in the back, and Maya, losing her balance, fell to her knees on the asphalt. Her jeans tore, her palms bled. She lifted her head. Andre stood on the steps, towering over her like a victor. Beside him, as if from nowhere, Elena appeared. She no longer looked scared. She looked at Maya with a triumphant smirk. "And we packed your things," Elena said loudly for the neighbors to hear. "Can't have a crazy person's junk cluttering a nice building." She gestured toward the gate. There, in the shadows, stood Elena's old beat-up Chevy. The trunk was open, the back seats piled high. Maya saw familiar shapes. Her Singer sewing machine, her grandmother's legacy. Rolls of expensive Italian silk she'd saved for years for her best collection. Patterns, mannequins. Her whole life, her skill, her past, all dumped in a pile like trash, ready for the landfill. "Take your junk and get out," Elena yelled, "or I'm throwing it in the dumpster right now." Maya sat on the asphalt. Around her, the neighbors gossiped about crazy Mrs. Sterling. Lucas was being shoved into a black van with no plates. Andre was wrapping an arm around Elena's waist, accepting condolences from the building manager. No home, no family, no evidence, no name. Only scraped knees and the taste of dust on her lips. She tried to stand, but her legs wouldn't hold. The world hadn't ended when she saw the video. It ended now, when she realized that all this time she wasn't fighting her husband, but a system he had built specifically for her, and in that system she was assigned the role of the neighborhood madwoman. Maya rose from the asphalt, ignoring the sting in her knees. The neighbors were still buzzing, but no one approached. She was a pariah. The van with Lucas had already turned the corner. She didn't know where they were taking him, but she knew one thing. If she stayed here, the next van would be for her. Her eyes darted to the second-floor windows of the right wing. Behind the heavy velvet curtains lived Mrs. Beatrice Hollowell, the matriarch of the Meridian, a former theater star whose authority in the building was absolute. Even Andre, with all his arrogance, always bowed to her and kissed her hand. Beatrice knew everyone. Beatrice remembered everything. And Beatrice had always said Maya reminded her of herself in her youth. Maya grabbed her bag and, ducking behind the hydrangea bushes, ran to the service entrance of Beatrice's wing. The door was unlocked. In these old buildings, people often forgot to lock the service stairs. Maya flew up to the second floor. Her heart was in her throat. She pressed the bell. 3 shorts, 1 long. Their old secret signal. The door opened almost instantly. Beatrice stood there, majestic even in a silk robe, with her signature cigarette holder. "Maya, my dear, what is this look? I saw some commotion from the window." "Mrs. Hollowell, please, let me in," Maya gasped, stumbling into the foyer and locking the door behind her. "Andre, he's lost it. He framed me. He's trying to put me in an institution." Beatrice didn't ask unnecessary questions. She saw the blood on Maya's hands and the wild look in her eyes. "Quiet, quiet." She took Maya's arm. "You need water and a moment to breathe." Beatrice's apartment was like a museum. Antique furniture, portraits on the walls, the smell of old perfume. "Hide me," Maya whispered. "He'll look for me. He knows I won't leave without my things." "Of course I'll hide you," Beatrice nodded. "Come to the pantry. No one will find you there. It's an old maid's room. It's not even on the modern floor plans. I'll lock the door from the outside for security. If anyone comes, I'll say I lost the keys." Maya nodded gratefully. "Thank you, Mrs. Hollowell. You're the only one I can trust." The door closed. The lock clicked. Maya was left in the semi-darkness among jars of preserves and stacks of old theater magazines. She slumped to the floor, head in her hands. She had to think. "Lucas, where is Lucas? How do I find him? How do I prove Andre is lying?" Her eyes fell on an old secretary desk in the corner of the room. It was piled with papers, receipts, and ledgers. Maya mechanically reached for one just to occupy her hands. It was an old ledger, worn and tattered. Beatrice had always kept the building's unofficial books from back when she was the board president. Maya opened it to the middle. Columns of numbers, dates, names. Roof repair, 2015. Pipe replacement, 2018. Suddenly, one name jumped out. Sterling A. Maya looked closer. Opposite Andre's name were sums, huge sums. But these weren't Andre's payments to the building fund. They were disbursements. Renovation of Unit 5, Hollowell. Paid by Sterling A. $25,000. Individual HVAC installation, Hollowell. Paid by Sterling A. $8,000. Monthly utility coverage, Hollowell. Paid by Sterling A. A chill went through Maya's bones. For 10 years, Andre had been paying for the old guard's comfort, Beatrice's new roof, her expensive medications, the refinishing of her antique floors. Why? Why would Andre, who would squeeze a penny until it bled, support an old actress? Maya flipped back to the beginning. 2012, the year Lucas died, an entry from October 15th, 2012, 3 days after the funeral. Received from Sterling A. $10,000, purpose, community grant. And below, in Beatrice's elegant script, meeting minutes signed, no questions from residents. The book fell from Maya's hands. She remembered that day. The board meeting where Lucas's debts to the association were discussed. Andre had said Lucas was dead and provided a certificate, but they needed witnesses to confirm they saw the body being removed. And Beatrice had stood up and said in her trained theater voice, "I saw it. Poor boy. The paramedics took him out at night." Her word was law. Everyone believed her. The police didn't even bother questioning other neighbors, satisfied with the testimony of the respected Mrs. Beatrice Hollowell. She had sold Lucas out, sold him for a renovation, and paid bills. Footsteps sounded outside the pantry door, not the shuffling steps of an old woman, but quick, confident ones. Then Beatrice's voice, but not the kind, soothing one she had used 5 minutes ago. It was a businesslike, hard voice. "Yes, Andre, she's here. Ran right to me, the little fool. I have her locked in the back room." A pause. Andre was saying something. "No, she's quiet. I told her I'd bring tea." "Of course, call them. Use the Mercy Care private service. They don't ask questions, and they use restraints. Have them come to the side gate. I'll open it. Only, Andre, remember our deal? My balcony needs restoration. It's going to be expensive." Maya covered her mouth to keep from screaming. "Agreed," Beatrice cooed. "I'll see you in 10 minutes." The footsteps faded. Maya was left in the dark. The betrayal was total. There was no old guard preserving traditions. There was a pack of vultures Andre had been feeding for years, and now they were waiting to pick her bones. 10 minutes. She had 10 minutes before the orderlies arrived to take her somewhere people don't come back from. Maya looked at the tiny window near the ceiling. It led to a ventilation shaft, narrow, covered in cobwebs. But it was the only way. She stood on the desk, stepping right on that cursed ledger. If she wanted to survive, she couldn't be a victim. She had to be a rat who knew this building better than its masters. Maya pushed the frame with all her might. The old paint cracked and the window creaked open. The smell of damp basement and pigeons hit her face. She pulled herself up, the sharp edge of the sill digging into her ribs, and squeezed through. The vent shaft led down to the basement. Maya slid down the metal chute, scraping her elbows, until she thudded onto a pile of old rags in the boiler room. She stood up and brushed herself off. The darkness here wasn't an enemy. It was an ally. She knew these basements. She and Lucas had played spies here as kids. Now the game was real. She navigated the labyrinth of pipes to the exit into the neighboring courtyard, right where the service entrance to her boutique was. It was the one place Andre hadn't reached yet. He'd always dismissed her business as women's rags and never bothered with the keys. 10 minutes later, she was inside. The familiar smell of chalk, fabric, and sewing machine oil calmed her racing heart. Here, among the mannequins and rolls of velvet, she felt safe. Maya turned on the desk lamp in her office and pulled the heavy curtains shut. First, she grabbed the first aid kit, cleaning the scrapes on her hands and knees. The pain was grounding. "Stop running," she told her reflection in the dark window. "Stop being the victim. You know this building better than he does. You know these people better than he does. Andre bought their loyalty, but he doesn't know their secrets." She sat at her desk and took a piece of paper. What did she have? Nothing. What did Andre have? Everything. Money, documents, witnesses. But Andre had one weakness. He was obsessed with legality. He built his schemes so they looked perfect on paper. Even Lucas's prison was framed as a renovation. And then it hit her. The Meridian wasn't just a building. It was a housing association with a charter written back in the 50s. That charter was a sacred cow. Any change to the floor plan, any square foot seized without a vote from the General Assembly was met with immediate expulsion and loss of property rights. It was the ultimate sin at the Meridian. Andre had built a secret room. He had cut through a load-bearing wall. He had seized part of the common ventilation shaft. Maya grabbed her keys and ran out. She needed the archives. The Meridian archives were in the sub-basement of the fourth wing. The keys were held only by the board president and the old janitor, Mr. Mitchell, who lived in a small room next to the records. Mr. Mitchell was the only person in the building who didn't take money from Andre, simply because he didn't want anything but his peace and his old newspapers. Maya knocked on the iron door. "Who is it?" a gravelly voice cracked. "Mr. Mitchell? It's Maya Sterling, Alex's daughter. Please open up." The lock clattered. The door opened a crack, and the wrinkled face of the old man peered out. "Maya?" He squinted. "Lord, child, what happened to you? They say you've lost your mind. Andre said—" "Andre is lying, Mr. Mitchell. He's trying to take everything. I need your help. Let me into the archives. I need the original floor plans from 1953. The old man looked her in the eye, long and hard. He remembered her as a little girl bringing him cookies. He remembered her father, a glass-honest engineer. "Lying, you say?" he muttered. "I always knew his eyes moved too fast. Not like our people. Come in." The archives smelled of dry paper and history. Mr. Mitchell pointed to the shelves. 1953, Section B, here." He pulled out a massive, dusty tube. Maya unrolled the yellowed blueprint on the table, blue lines, measured to the millimeter. There was her apartment, living room, bedroom, kitchen, and there was the wall where Andre had hidden Lucas. On the plan, it was empty space, a ventilation shaft, and a technical gap between the building sections. "Aha," Mr. Mitchell said, looking over her shoulder. "I remember. A main support beam runs through there. Can't touch that. If you damage it, the whole vertical line could shift." Maya took her phone and snapped photos of the blueprints. "He didn't just touch it, Mr. Mitchell. He cut a door into it. He made a room there." The old man gasped. "You're joking? That's a criminal violation. That's a structural threat. If the city inspectors find out—" "The inspectors will find out," Maya said grimly. "But first, the residents will. The same residents who are terrified of their property values dropping. Andre can buy their silence about a crazy sister, but he can't buy their fear of the building collapsing on their heads." She started to roll up the plan, but her eyes caught a folder on the next table. The spine read, "Financial Records, 2012, Bad Debts." Maya opened the folder. Inside were copies of debt notes residents owed to the association. She flipped through until she found it. A promissory note for Lucas Vane. Amount, $100,000. Secured by interest in family property. Date, October 12th, 2012. Maya froze. October 12th. "Mr. Mitchell," she asked quietly, "do you remember when my father's funeral was?" "How could I forget?" The old man sighed. "October 12th. It rained buckets that day." Maya looked at the signature at the bottom of the document. Lucas Vane. The signature was hurried and nervous, similar to Lucas's. But Lucas had been at the cemetery that day. He had been catatonic with grief. Maya had held his arm the entire time. He physically couldn't have been at the association office signing papers, but Andre hadn't been with them for a few hours. He said he was arranging the wake. Maya looked closer at the signature. At the end, the flourish curved sharply downward. Lucas always curved his flourishes upward. But downward? Andre always did that. She flipped the page. There was a power of attorney attached. "I, Lucas Vane, grant Andre Sterling the right to sign all financial documents on my behalf. Date, October 10th, 2012. On October 10th, Lucas was in the hospital with severe alcohol poisoning. He was in a coma. Maya had sat by his bed for 48 hours straight. Andre only came in the evenings to bring food. "He faked it all," Maya whispered. "He stole Lucas's identity before he even killed him. He ran up debts using a forged power of attorney while my brother was dying in the ICU." The pieces were finally set. Lucas's debts, which Andre saved him from, were a fiction. Andre created the debts, paid them off with Maya's money, and used them as an excuse to cage her brother. Maya looked at Mr. Mitchell. Her eyes held no more fear, only cold, calculated rage. "Mr. Mitchell," she said firmly, "tomorrow is the annual general board meeting. Is Andre speaking?" "He is." The old man nodded. "He's running for board president. Promised everyone a cut in the association fees." "Perfect." Maya neatly tucked the documents into her bag. "I'll be there, and I won't be alone." She took out her phone. She needed to make one call. A call to the one man Andre feared more than anyone, even if he thought the man was long gone. She dialed a number from her father's old address book kept at the boutique. The phone rang for a long time. Finally, someone picked up. "Hello?" A gravelly, annoyed voice answered. "Hello, Mr. Thorne," Maya said. "This is Maya Sterling, Alex's daughter. I know who stole the money from your firm 12 years ago, and I know exactly where he'll be tomorrow." There was a heavy silence, and then the voice answered with a metallic edge that radiated threat even over the phone. "Give me the address, kid. I'm writing it down." Maya hung up and looked at the clock. 5 in the morning, 12 hours until the board meeting. 12 hours to do the impossible. She left the archives, leaving Mr. Mitchell to guard the original records, and headed to her boutique. She needed to prepare, not just with papers, but with an image. At the Meridian, people are judged by how they look, and if she wanted to be heard, she had to look not like the crazy woman who had been dragged through the dirt yesterday, but like a queen returning for her throne. At the boutique, she chose her best suit, a sharp navy blue wool piece, the one she'd worn when she won the city's major uniform contracts years ago. She washed her face with cold water, covered the scrapes with foundation, and styled her hair perfectly. At 6 a.m, she called the only number that could help her find Lucas. It was a risk, but she had no choice. She called Mercy Care, the private ambulance service Beatrice had mentioned. "Dispatch," a sleepy female voice answered. "Good morning, this is Maya Sterling. Your crew picked up my brother, Lucas Vane, yesterday from the Meridian." "We don't give info to third parties," the dispatcher snapped. "I'm not a third party." Maya's voice turned to ice. "I'm the client. My husband, Andre Sterling, paid for the call. He's having a problem with the transaction. He told me to tell you that if you don't want the IRS looking into your special services for transporting people without consent, you'll tell me where he is." The silence on the other end lasted forever. Maya was bluffing. She didn't know if Andre had paid yet, but she knew how these shady companies worked. They always operated in the gray, always in fear. "He's at the suburban facility," the dispatcher grumbled, "but you can't see him. He's in isolation." "I'll be there in an hour," Maya said. "Have him ready for discharge." She didn't go herself. She sent the only person she could trust with this, her driver and boutique manager, a strong young man named Marcus, who had worked for her for 5 years and hated Andre for his arrogance. "Marcus," she told him, handing him an envelope of cash from the safe. "Get him out, any way you have to. Buy them off, break him out, whatever. But by 5 o'clock he needs to be here, cleaned up and dressed in what I've prepared." She handed him a bag with one of her father's old suits she'd kept for memory. The day dragged on painfully. Maya sat in the boutique, going over the archive documents. Every paper was a nail in the coffin of Andre's reputation, but the nails had to be driven in correctly. At 4 p.m, the Meridian courtyard began to fill with people. Workers set up a microphone. Residents brought out chairs. Andre walked among the rows, shaking hands, smiling, joking. He was in his element, the master of the house, the benefactor. Maya watched him through the blinds of her boutique. She saw him approach Beatrice Hollowell, kiss her hand, and whisper something. The old woman laughed, coquettishly adjusting her hat. "Laugh, you old vulture," Maya whispered. "Laugh while you can." At 4:45, a black van pulled into the courtyard. Marcus stepped out. He opened the back door and helped a man out. Maya exhaled. It was Lucas. He was pale and thin. His hands shook, but he stood straight. Marcus had shaved him, and in the father's suit, which hung a bit loose, he suddenly looked like the Lucas she remembered. An intellectual, a human being. Maya went out to them. Lucas looked at her with fear, but seeing her calm face, he relaxed a little. "Maya," he whispered, "where are we?" "We're going home, Lucas," she said, taking his hand. "We're going to get our names back." Exactly at 5 o'clock, Andre stepped onto the makeshift stage. "Dear friends, neighbors," his voice, amplified by the mic, echoed off the walls. "I'm glad to see you all here. This year hasn't been easy for our building, but we've managed. We repaired the roof, we replaced the pipes, all thanks to our unity." Light applause followed. People loved having their problems solved for them. "Today, I want to propose a new fund," Andre continued, beaming. "The Meridian Future Fund. I'll personally make the first donation, $100,000. This money will go toward landscaping, new play areas, and new secret rooms." Maya's ringing voice cut through the silence like a knife. Andre froze. The crowd gasped and parted. Maya walked through the courtyard. She wasn't alone. She held Lucas's arm. "Maya." Andre went pale. The microphone squealed with feedback. "What are you—" "Security! Remove this woman! She's ill!" 2 guards moved toward her, but Maya held up a hand. "Stop," she commanded with such authority they actually hesitated. "I am a member of this association. I am the owner of Unit 12, and I have the right to speak." She walked up to the stage. Andre looked down at her, but terror was already dancing in his eyes. He saw Lucas. He saw that Lucas didn't look like a crazy drifter. "Neighbors," Maya turned to the people, "my husband talks to you about landscaping in the future, but he's silent about the past." She pulled the 1953 floor plan from her bag and held it high. "Look at this. This is the official plan of our building, and this is what Andre did." She threw photos of the secret room onto the table in front of the board. She had managed to forward them to her own phone back in the park before Elena saw. "He cut through a load-bearing wall. He created an illegal space that threatens the structural integrity of this entire wing, and all so he could hide a human being there." A murmur ran through the crowd. Load-bearing wall. Collapse. That was scarier than any gossip. That touched their safety. "That's a lie!" Andre shouted, losing his cool. "Those are fakes. This woman is unstable. She brought an actor." "An actor?" Maya smirked. "Lucas, show them." Lucas took a step forward. He lifted his head and looked at the crowd. "I'm Lucas Vane," he said quietly, but in the silence of the courtyard, everyone heard him. "I've lived in this building since I was born. Mrs. Gable, remember when you used to give me cookies? Mr. Peterson, you taught me how to play chess." The seniors in the front rows began to look at each other. "My God," one grandmother whispered, "it really is Lucas. Those are Alex's eyes." "He's an imposter!" shrieked Beatrice Hollowell from her seat in the front row. "I saw Lucas being buried. Get him out of here!" Andre realized he was losing control. "Enough of this circus! Guards, throw them out! Now!" The guards moved forward again. There were 3 of them, big and mean. Marcus wouldn't be able to handle them alone. But then, the gates of the courtyard swung open with a bang. A black G-Wagon roared in, not new, but predatory and well-kept. It braked right in front of the stage, nearly hitting the guards. The door opened, and a stocky man with a cane stepped out. He had the face of a man who had survived the rougher streets of the 90s and come out on top. It was Victor Thorne, the owner of the debt collection firm Andre supposedly feared. But Andre didn't fear him. He looked at him with confusion. He didn't even recognize him. Victor Thorne walked up to Maya. "Hello, kid," he said in a deep bass. "Thanks for the invite." He turned to Andre. "And you must be Sterling, the one who took out $1 million loan from my firm 12 years ago and skipped out by declaring the borrower dead." Andre backed away. I don't know you. This is a mistake." "The mistake was thinking I'd forget." Thorne smirked. "I spent 10 years looking for Lucas Vane. Thought he ran off with my money. Turns out you stole the money and hid the kid." He pulled a document from his pocket. The original loan agreement Maya had found in the records. "The forensic audit confirmed it," he said loudly to the crowd. "The signature was forged. The power of attorney was a fake. The money went into shell accounts linked to Mr. Sterling here." The crowd went dead silent. It was checkmate. Andre stood on the stage, white as a sheet. He knew this wasn't just a scandal. It was a federal case. And the lead witness was a man the police didn't like to argue with. Maya looked at her husband. There was no triumph in her eyes, only exhaustion and cold contempt. "You wanted to be the king of the Meridian, Andre?" she asked. "Well, look at it. The Meridian is looking back at you." She turned to the residents. "Now ask Mrs. Hollowell how much it cost for her to stay silent about Lucas being alive." All heads turned to the old actress. Beatrice shrank into her chair, trying to become invisible, but hundreds of eyes were already boring into her. The trap had closed. The silence in the courtyard was ringing. Andre stood on the stage, his fingers white from gripping the podium. His perfect suit suddenly looked baggy, and his face looked gray and old. He searched for a supportive glance, but found only walls of judgment. Maya stepped forward, standing between her husband and the people. She was no longer the victim. She was the prosecutor, and this courtyard was her courtroom. "You heard, Mr. Thorne." Her voice was steady. Andre stole money, but that's only half of it. He stole a life. For 12 years he kept my brother, your neighbor, in a stone box. He fed him scraps while he ate steak at your parties. He tricked me, his own wife, into paying for that prison. She looked over the rows of the old guard. You all know me. I grew up in front of you. My father helped build this neighborhood. My mother made your daughter's prom dresses. Did we ever lie to you? The elderly residents stayed silent, but their expressions shifted. Contempt for a crazy woman was replaced by the horror of the truth. And now look at him. Maya pointed at Andre. A man with no roots who bought a seat among you. A man who cut through the support beams of your home for his filthy secrets. A man who bought your conscience. She turned to Beatrice Hollowell. The old woman was trembling, clutching a lace handkerchief. Mrs. Hollowell, Maya said softly but firmly, tell them the truth, now or tomorrow. I give the police the copies of the ledger showing every renovation Andre paid for in exchange for your silence. Accomplice to kidnapping is a heavy charge. Beatrice jerked as if struck by lightning. She looked at Andre, then at the stern Victor Thorne, then at the faces of her neighbors. The survival instinct, honed by decades of social climbing, kicked in. She slowly stood up. Her legs shook, but her back was straight. The actress was taking her final bow. Her voice cracked, but she cleared her throat and continued louder. I have to confess. 12 years ago, Andre came to me. He said Lucas was in trouble, that he had to be hidden from dangerous people. He asked me to confirm Lucas's death to save him. I believed him. I thought I was helping. Liar! Andre screamed. You took the money! You demanded the balcony repair! I took help from a grateful neighbor! Beatrice shrieked, saving her own skin. I didn't know he was keeping the boy in chains. I thought Lucas had moved away. Andre tricked me, just like he tricked all of you. The crowd erupted. That was the end. Beatrice's testimony was the final nail. Get out! Someone shouted from the back. Fraud! Yelled a woman from the second floor. He's going to make the building fall down! Call the police! Andre backed away. He realized he had lost. Not just to Maya or Thorne, but to the Meridian itself, the collective body he had tried to dominate, which was now spitting him out like a foreign object. He tried to step off the stage, but Victor Thorne blocked his path. Going somewhere, hero? Thorne smirked. The cops are at the gate. I called them myself. We're going to talk about forgery and grand larceny. Andre looked at Maya. His eyes held pure, unadulterated hatred. You're nothing without me, he hissed. You're just a seamstress. I am a Sterling, Maya said calmly. And you? You're nobody. 2 police officers entered the courtyard. Andre didn't resist when they cuffed him. He only looked back once at the windows of the apartment he had thought was his fortress. At the gate, another commotion broke out. Elena, trying to slip away during the chaos with 2 massive suitcases, was intercepted by Marcus. In a hurry, ma'am? Marcus yanked the zipper on one of the bags. Silver spoons, jewelry boxes, and antique icons spilled onto the asphalt, everything that belonged to Maya and Lucas's family. It's mine! He promised me! Elena shrieked. The police, having already packed Andre into the cruiser, came back for her. When the sirens finally faded, a new silence settled over the courtyard. This one was light and cleansing. Maya walked over to Lucas, who was leaning against an old oak tree. He was looking at the sky as if seeing it for the first time. It's over, Lucas, she said, hugging him. We're home. A month later. Autumn was in full swing, painting the Meridian courtyard in gold and crimson. Maya sat on the central bench. She was dressed in an elegant coat of her own design. Beside her sat Beatrice Hollowell, quieter, older, but still trying to maintain some dignity. Now she was the one looking into Maya's eyes, asking for advice on curtain colors. Maya had become the new, unofficial heart of the Meridian, not through power or money, but through the truth. Her neighbors respected her for standing tall, for cleaning the rot out of their home. Lucas walked out of the lobby. He looked completely different. Clean-shaven, wearing glasses, a folder of papers under his arm. He still walked with a slight limp, and a shadow of the horror sometimes flickered in his eyes. But he was returning to life. The university had reinstated him as a researcher. It turned out his dissertation, thought lost, had been saved by an old professor. "Maya, I'm heading to the library," he called out, waving. "I'll be back for dinner. Need anything?" "Pick up some sourdough bread," she smiled. She watched him walk away, then looked up at the windows of her apartment. The secret room had been demolished. The wall was restored. Now it was just a living room flooded with sunlight. Andre was awaiting trial. His accounts were frozen, his reputation destroyed. No one in the city would shake his hand again. Elena was giving evidence against him, hoping for a lighter sentence for the theft. Maya breathed in the cool air. It smelled of fallen leaves and freedom. She pulled her phone from her bag. A message from a new client flashed on the screen. "Mrs. Sterling, when can I come in for a fitting? They say you work miracles." "I don't work miracles," she whispered to herself, putting the phone away. "I just know how to rip out old seams to sew a new life." She stood up, straightened her collar, and walked home, to a place where there were no more secrets. And that is the story, my friends. A story about betrayal by those closest to us, about the blindness of those who should have seen, and about how the truth, no matter how bitter or terrifying, is always better than a beautiful lie. What do you think? Did Maya do the right thing by airing the family's dirty laundry, or should she have spared Andre because he cared for the family in his own twisted way? And does Beatrice deserve forgiveness for selling her soul for comfort? Let me know in the comments. If this story moved you, please hit the like button. It really helps the channel. Subscribe so you don't miss our upcoming dramas, and make sure to hit the bell icon. Take care of yourselves and your loved ones.